Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to show you how to create a very simple REST API using Spring Boot. So let's start. Before diving deep into the project, let us first see what a REST API is. API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it is a way for two computers to talk to each other over the web. For example, a delivery app can use the Google Maps API to support location tracking instead of building one from scratch. REST in REST API stands for Representational State Transfer, and this has a bunch of methods like get, post, put, delete, etc. All communication done via REST API uses only the HTTP request. Here, as you can see in the diagram, the client sends an HTTP request to the server. You can see the URL endpoints are shown here. The server receives the HTTP request and sends the response back to the client. The response which the server sends to the client contains an HTTP status as well as the payload. The payload is nothing but the data which the server is sending back to the client in JSON format. As you can see, this is the JSON format. So in this format, the server will send the data back to the client, which is the response, along with the status code. If you don't know what HTTP response status codes are, you can learn it from this MDN docs, HTTP response status codes. As you can see, all the codes between 100 to 199 means informational response, 200 to 299 means successful responses, 300 to 399 means redirection messages, 400 series stands for client error messages, and 500 to 599 is server error. So if the creation is successful, we will get this 200 OK message, 201 OK message, okay? 201 is for creation. And to fetch some data from the server, we will get this 200 OK message, which means the request is successful. So these are the HTTP response status codes. Now let's get back to the REST API. Get is used to fetch some data from the server. Put is used to update an already existing resource. Patch is used to update specific fields of already existing resource. Post is used to create, and delete is used to delete. Let's have a look at the Spring Boot project architecture which we are going to create. At first, the client will send a request to the server. At the server point, there will be something called the controller. The controller will take the first order from the client. Whatever request will come to the server, the controller will stand in front to take the specific request from the presentation layer of the client. Then the controller will send the request to the appropriate service provider. So who will provide the service to process the request for the controller? The service layer will do that. The service layer provides services to our controller. But the service layer might need to interact with the database. But the service layer will not interact directly with the database. It will take help of the DAO layer. DAO stands for Data Access Object, and it brings the necessary data from the repository, that is the database. As you can see, this is the database in orange color, and the DAO will either create the resource or delete or update or fetch it to the service layer, which in turn will go to the controller, and the controller will send it back to the client as the response. The response will contain the HTTP status code along with the payload, which is in JSON format. In our project, we will implement all these HTTP methods get, post, put, delete in order to create our REST API. So we will have our entity named as employee, and it will contain the employee ID, employee name, and the employee job role. If we hit this particular endpoint, which is /employees, then we will get all the employees in the server or in the database. If we want to fetch information about a particular employee, we have to give the employee ID beside the employee's URL endpoint, and we will get the single employee of given ID. Then if we want to add a new employee to the database, then we have to use the post method to add the new employee. If we want to change a particular employee which is already existing in the database, we have to use the put HTTP method to update the employee. And at last, we will use this delete HTTP method to delete the particular employee, provided that we give the employee ID beside the employee's URL. Now let's go to our Eclipse to create the project. In Eclipse, to create a new Spring Boot project, I will click on File, New, Project, click on Spring Starter Project. You have to choose this option, Spring Starter Project. Click on it and click on Next. Then I will give the name of the project as REST API, and then the type will be Maven. The group name is usually com.the company name, but you can give any name. I am giving my name com.registry, and then artifact is REST API, and clicking on Next. Here I will select the Spring Web dependency in order to run our Spring application on Tomcat server. So I'm selecting this dependency and clicking on Finish. Later, when we will connect to database, we have to add other two dependencies for Hibernate and MySQL. That will come in the next video. But in this video, you will see how to create a basic Spring Boot project, how to hit the URL endpoints through Postman as the client, and how to retrieve the data and create new data. Okay. And yeah, we will use the Postman for testing the API. This is the Postman. Here you can click on plus to start a blank collection and testing your application. Okay, you have to give the collection name here. You can give any collection name, suppose REST API, Spring Boot, any name you can give, and then you can click on the three dots. You can add a request. And here, in place of enter URL or paste URL, you have to place the URL which you want to hit, the endpoint which you want to hit. Well, the option Spring Starter Project will not appear in your Eclipse if you have not installed the Spring Boot plugin. For that, you have to follow this video, how to create a Spring Boot project in Eclipse IDE. Okay, and if you want to create a Spring Boot project using Spring Initializer also, you can create that. I will mention the links of those videos in the description. Also, you can create a Spring Boot project in VS Code. Again, I will mention the link in the description. Now, as you can see, the REST API project appears in my workspace. Here, if you expand src/main.java, you can see com.registry.rest API. Inside it, we have the REST API application.java. Okay, we can just right click and run as Spring Boot application just to check whether the application is built successfully or not. Yeah, it's running. I will go to my Chrome localhost/8080. For now, you will see white label error page because I have not mentioned or defined any endpoint for now. Let us create the controller first. If you remember, I told you that the controller will accept the request from the presentation link. So, at first we have to create the controller. Inside com.registry.rest API, I will create another package or sub-package. Remember that you have to create a sub-package, not a package outside it. So, inside it, I will create a package whose name will be controller. Okay, dot controller. And inside it, I will create my controller, new Java class, and I will give the name controller and click on finish. I will mark the controller with the annotation REST controller. The REST controller annotation is used in Spring Framework to develop RESTful web services. It basically combines the functionality of add controller and add response body annotations. For now, just know that since we are trying to make a REST API using Spring Boot, we have to use the add REST controller annotation. It will make our work easier. At first, let us check whether we can hit a certain endpoint or not. We are going to create a REST API where we will get the employee data, post the employee data, delete, as well as update the employee data. But before that, we will create a /home endpoint for the home page in order to check whether the endpoint is working or not. For that, at first, we will use a GET request to get whatever is there in the home page. For that, we will define this method public string home. Okay, and here inside this method, we will return This is home page. Okay, so this is the simple method I have created which will return the message. This is home page. Now I will put a GET request to the server. For sending a GET request, I have to use the annotation GET mapping of Spring Boot. So @GET mapping. You can press Ctrl Enter in order to import this annotation, and inside this GET mapping I have to mention the URL endpoint which will be /home after localhost 8080. Let's see whether it's reflecting on the output or not. Here I am on the page localhost 8080. If I put /home, no changes there. Well, let me restart the application. Now if I hit this endpoint /home, you can see this. This is home page. You can clearly see this message. /home endpoint is working fine. Now we will go to our postman, which will act as the client, and it will send the request to the server. So here, as you can see, the method type is GET. I have selected this method type, and I will copy this particular endpoint and I will paste it here. We are using postman because here we can also see the payload. This is the payload, okay, the body it's giving. We can also see the status code. That's why we are using the postman, because we can't go back to the server again and again and change. It will be tedious and we won't be able to see all the information. And the status 200 means the GET request is successful and we can successfully get the data whichever we asked for. Now let us create an endpoint to get the employee data. Here again I will use GET mapping because I want to get the employee data from the server. Now remember that in this video I am not showing you how to connect to the database. So I will create a basic list and that list will contain the employee data. But in the later video, I will show you how to create a table in the database and change the data, manipulate it through the service layer and the DAO layer. Okay, the DAO layer is missing in this video. You will get to know in the next video. For now, to fetch all the employees from the server, we have to use the GET request. For that, I will use GET mapping. Again, I will import, but it's already imported. So this GET mapping will hit the endpoint /home/employees. Now I will define this function public list because it will return a list of employees, and that's why we are using a list, and the type of the list will be employee. Okay, I have not defined any employee class as of now. I have to define that. So I will create another package inside the REST API which will be entities. So employee is an entity which will contain the basic schema or structure of the employee entities. Finish. And inside the entities, I will define the employee .java class. This is the employee.java class. And here I will define the properties of employee. The first property is private long ID. The first thing will be ID. I want the employee ID in order to update or delete. Then I need the employee name. Just to keep it simple, I am taking only three properties: private, string, job role. Okay, or job. I can just simply say job. And then I will create the getters and setters as well as the parameterized constructors. So right click, refactor, click on generate constructor using fields, generate. Then we will create the getters and setters for it. Click on generate getters and setters, select all, generate. Okay, we can also define a default constructor from superclass. And yeah, we are done. Let's save it. So we can import this employee class in controller now. And after that, we will mention the method name getEmployees. As you can see, a red mark is here because we have not imported the employee. But before that, I will import the list from java.util. And also I have to import the employee from com.registry.restapi.entities. And here I have to return this dot employee service dot get employee. If you remember, I have explained you previously that whatever services the controller needs for the particular request, it will take from the service layers. So we also have to define a service layer for it. I will create another package inside REST API dot services and I will click on finish. Inside that, I will create an interface named employee service and click on finish. So the function which we have used here is get employee. So I have to create a similar function in employee service.java. So I will define this function public list employee get employee. Okay, I will copy the function name which I have already used. So this is the function I will take from the service layer. Whatever the controller needs, the service layer will provide those services to the controller. Well, let me import the things which are needed to be imported. Now this is an interface and some other class needs to implement it. For that, I will create an implementation class. Employee service IMPL for the implementation class, and it will implements employee service. And here, if you hover on this employee service IMPL, you will see add unimplemented methods. Click on it. Just delete the not needed unnecessary comments. Here we have to return a list of employees. But from where we will get the list of employees? We have not connected the database yet. For that, for now, we will use a dummy list to get the employees. So list employee list equals to arrays dot as list. We will use the arrays dot as list to pass a list of employee objects to this list employee. Okay, now how to pass a list of employee objects? We will use the new operator, then employee, and within that we can give the employee ID. For the first object 1, I will give my name, Rajusri. Then I will give the job role, software engineer. Similarly, I will give another object to the list. Just copy paste. Arun Sam. I will give Sam as debugger. Just give random names, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's valid or not. And at the end, give a semicolon. Now I have to return this list of employees. So what I will do is I will just return the list. Fine. That's it. And here you can see I have already created an employee service object, but I have not imported this because this is the employee service interface and I have to import it in the controller because whatever service the controller needs, it will get from the employee service.java only. Now, since the service layer will provide all the services to the controller, we have to annotate the service layer with add service annotation in order to tell the Spring Boot that, yeah, this is the particular service which you have to provide to the controller. So I will come to the service implementation, that is the employee service impl IMPL, and I have to annotate this using add service annotation control space in order to import the particular package. Then again we have to go to controller.java and I have to import the particular employee service. Here we will import the service. So public employee service control space in order to import it. employee ACRVIC service. Okay, now the error here is gone. So what I'm doing here is in the particular endpoint /home/employees, I am making a GET request to get the list of employees. And for this case, I am not using a database, so I am just getting the list of employees from the dummy list, which I have created, as you can see here. And in the controller class, I have to annotate the employee service as @AutoWired. @AutoWired annotation will automatically inject the dependencies into the classes. It is basically a core annotation in Spring that's part of its inversion of control. You can just visit my YouTube channel and watch this video about dependency injection and auto-wiring using Spring Boot. The Spring Boot container will know that it has to provide the object of this employee service throughout this class. And let me tell you, I have imported this employee service interface, and I don't need to import the implementation because of method overriding. So every method will be implemented by this implementation class, and it will automatically be called here, no matter I just mention the interface here. Now let's save it and run it. I have to go to the REST API application.java because Spring Boot starts running from here. This class is annotated with @Spring Boot application. So right click here, click on Run As, click on Spring Boot app. As you can see, the application is running. Let us go to Postman. And previously, I have used the GET request to get the home page message. Now I have to give another slash and I have to give employees as the endpoint. Click on Send, and you can see I have fetched all the data through GET request. The ID 1, 2, and 3 are visible. Well, I have given 2 of the IDs as same. I can also change it. But to change it, I have to use a post request. As of now, if you see, if I make a post request now, I have to give some body to it. I will choose the form as raw, and the format is JSON. And if I copy a certain employee data and I will paste it, I give suppose ID 4, name as Rahul, and job as manager. And if I click on send, I will get 4 or 5 method not allowed. Why? Because I have not mentioned any method on this REST API in order to make a post request. I have defined the GET request but not the post. For now, I have to define the post request method. Now I will create a HTTP post request to create a new employee and add it to the list of employees at the server end. For that, I will use this annotation @post mapping. Okay. And inside this, I will give this endpoint same as the get mapping all employees. And the function name will be add employee. Okay. The function will be public and the type of the function will be. Why I am giving this response entity is because I want to send both the HTTP status code along with the payload, that is the data in JSON format, back to the client. For that, I am using this response entity type. And the type will be HTTP and the type will be employee. Fine. We have to import it. And now for this particular endpoint, I need to define a service at the service layer. For that, I will define this function public employee add employee. Implement the unimplemented methods here. Here what I will do is I will get the object of the new employee and I will add it to the list as of now because I am not using the database. And I have to use the method add list.add employee and I will return emp, that is the employee. And I also have to send this parameter, which is the employee or the employee object to pass from the client to the controller, from the controller to the service layer. Now coming to the controller, I will use that particular method from the service layer to send this employee object from the controller to the service layer. So this dot employee service dot add employee, and I'm passing this object employee. Okay, and from where I am getting this employee? I am getting this employee from the request body. So whatever JSON format data I will send from the Postman, you can see here in Postman, I can send the data in JSON format. So this is the request body. So this data will go to the server to get added to the list. So I have to use at request body and import it. And the type of the data will be of type employee emp. After adding the employee to the list of employees which are already existing, I am returning the employee from the service layer to the controller, and this employee list, this new employee I have to store somewhere, which I will store in this object employee. And then I have to return a new response entity. And in this response entity, I will return both the employee object along with the HTTP status code, which is for created. So it will send a status code for creation of new employee on the employee list, and it will be 201. So I have to use the new keyword in order to create the object of this response entity and send it back to the endpoint as the response. Let's save it. Let's restart the Spring Boot application. I'm going to Postman. And here, if I select the method as post and I click on send, as you can see, I am encountering an error which is telling java.lang.unsupported operation exception. Well, there might be some exception in this array list operation. Let me see. Okay, so I have used this arrays.as list. So what it will do is it will make this array list as fixed size. So I can't add the list.add employee. I can't add new employee here. To fix this issue, what I have to do is I will enclose this arrays.as list inside brackets, and then I will make it as new array list. New array list. This will make this list of employee size as dynamic. Before it was constant, the size was constant at the time of initialization only. That was the fixed size. But now you can add new employees to it as much as you want. Let's restart this application. And now if I go to Postman, here if I click on send and hit this particular endpoint, you can see the status is 201. Why the status is 201? Because I have sent it using the response entity on successful creation of employee. So the status is 201 because the particular employee data is successfully added to the list. Now if I click on get and I do a get request for getting all the employees, we will see this particular alarm with ID 4 is added with job equals to null because I have not given any job. Well, why job is null? Okay, because it's job and not role. See, I have given the wrong keyword. I have to give it as job. And if I again go to the post and click on send, do a post request again, and if I do a get request again, you can see again a new alarm with ID 4, and now the job as manual tester is added. So this is how you do a get and post request. Now, what if I want to get a particular employee with a given ID? For that, let us do another get request to get particular employee ID. Here in the controller class, I will define another get mapping, and here I will give this particular URL endpoint home slash employee slash employee ID. So why employee ID is given within curly braces? Because I want this particular employee ID and I want to fetch the data of this particular employee ID. How to do that from the URL? How can we fetch the data? How can we fetch the ID and send to the service layer to get it processed and get the response back? Let's see. So I'm going to define this function as public employee get employee. So instead of employees, I am giving it get employee because I want one particular employee. And to get the data, to fetch the data from the URL for the employee ID, what I will do is I will use this annotation at path variable. And let's import this. So this at path variable annotation will fetch the data or the employee ID from the URL and it will send it to the body of this function, log employee ID. So the employee ID is long data. And now what I will do is I have to call a particular service from the service layer again. For that, I will do return this dot employee service dot get employee. Well, this get employee is not defined. Okay, this get employee is already defined. So I will make the previous method as employees. I have to change the method name as employees. So get employee's name is for getting all the employee and get employee is to get only a particular employee. Let me change it all over. Oh, I am changing in the wrong function. Yeah, let me change it all over and I have to define a new function as get employee. Implement the unimplemented methods here. To fetch the particular employee from the list, what I will do is I will iterate through all the employee objects in the list and I will match the employee ID. And once the employee ID is matched, I will return the particular employee back to the controller from the service layer. So what I will do is I will use a for each loop. So for employee, employee, EMP in the list, I will check if EMP dot get ID. Remember the getters and setters I have defined previously that is being used here. Equal to employee ID. Okay, EMP ID. Let me change this EMP ID. Well, the type will be long. Okay, long employee ID, and also I have to change the type in the employee service interface also. Let me change it here. Let me change it here. And if the employee ID matches with any of the employees in the list, then return that particular employee. Fine. And if nothing matches, return null. Fine. That's it. We are iterating through all the employees in the list. And once the ID is matched, I am returning the employee from the server back to the client in the form of response. So now I am going to the controller. I have to send the employee ID here. Yeah, there is some method definition problem. Okay. Add employee. I might be using the, okay, I have to give this name to this employee, not add, it's get employee because we are trying to fetch a particular employee. Yeah, I'm trying to hurry up because I want to finish this video quickly, but in that case, some things are wrongly typed. Sorry for that. Let's restart the application. And now I will give a get request using a particular employee ID, suppose 1, and I am clicking on send. Okay, it's a 404 error. Let's see what's the problem. Okay, so it looks like I have given the wrong URL here. I have mentioned the wrong URL here. It should be employees instead of employees. So let's save it. Let's restart this application again. I am going to my postman. I am clicking on send. And as you can see, my GET request for a particular employee ID is successful. Now, we have seen how to get a list of employees, a particular employee, as well as how to create an employee. Now we will see how to update an employee. To update an employee, we have to use the put method. Put is an HTTP method which is used to update an already existing employee or resource on the database. So what we will do is we will create a new function employee. Return type will be of employee because I have to return the response to the client as in JSON format, and it will return the employee object as a response. So public employee update employee, and inside the parameter I have to give at request body because I will update the new employee with the JSON data which is sent to the server. So the server will get the new employee data and it will compare that whether that particular employee ID is already present in the database, a list in this case, and if it is present, it will update the other fields such as name and job, and then it will return an employee object. But at first, it has to get the employee data from the client side, which it wants to update. So request body employee emp. After that, what I will do is I will return this dot from the employee service. I have to get the function update employee, and then I will send the employee object from the request body to the service to get it processed. Fine. For now, we have not created a service in the service layer to update the employee. Let's go to the service layer to create one. Here I will create a new method in the interface, public employee update employee, and I will get the employee object from the request body. As you have seen, I have sent it from the request body to this function update employee. Let's save this function and implement the unimplemented methods in the class. So it's here. Now what I will do is I will iterate through the list. So list dot for each. So I will use a for each loop to iterate through each object of the list which contains the employee object. So E, and I will check if E dot get ID if the particular object's ID matches with the given employee object's ID. So the employee object is sent from the front end, right? So it will extract the ID from this employee and it will iterate through each employee object of the list, which is this. In this case, I have not implemented the database table. So for now, I am using this dummy list, and it will match the ID of this employee object with each of the employee objects in the list. And if the ID matches, that is, if e.getID equal to emp.getID, then what it will do is it will change the name and job of that particular employee object. E dot set name employee dot get name. So it will get the name of this particular employee object and it will set in this particular E object of the list. Similarly, it will also update E dot set job employee dot get job. Okay, this is the use of setters and getters function in the entity class. Let's save it. And see, there is an error. It is telling method update employee of type. Okay, this parameter I have not sent from the I have not sent this parameter from the interface. I have to send this from the interface. Yeah. So this is the method in the interface, and this is the implementation method where I am iterating through each of the employees and matching the IDs. And if the ID matches, I will update the other two fields, that is name and job, and I will send back the updated employee object as a response. So return EMP. But one thing is missing is I missed the annotation. Without the annotation, nothing will work in this REST API. So @put mapping, control space, enter to import the necessary libraries. And within this, I also have to give the path to it. and the path will be /home/employees. Okay, let's run the application. Go to the REST API application.java, click on Run As, click on Spring Boot app. It's running as you can see. Let's go to Postman. Let's click on Send. At first, let us check whether we are getting all the employees using the get method here. Yeah, we are getting all the employees. Now let us do a put method. So I am selecting put from here and I will change what we have. I have one as Rajushree. Okay, so I will change the employee with ID 1 and I will type Rajushree Guho. Okay, this is the title. I am changing the title of the already existing employee and I will click on send. As you can see, this particular employee is updated. Rajushree turned into Rajushree Guho. So I have updated this particular data. So our put request is successful. Let us implement the delete method now. We will go to our Eclipse. We will go to the controller. We will use the annotation @delete mapping, and inside it I will give the URL. So if I want to delete a particular employee, you can see in this chart, if I want to delete a particular employee, I have to give the employee ID. So I have to send the employee ID, and I also have to extract that employee ID using the @path variable annotation, as you have seen previously in the get mapping to get a particular employee, right? So here I have to give this path /home/employees/employee ID. Fine. Then I will define the function public response entity. Within the response entity, I want to send the HTTP status. Okay, so if the deletion is successful, I want to send the HTTP status as okay. And if the deletion is not successful, there will be some internal server error. So it will also send an HTTP status as 500. That is, there is some internal server error and we can't delete the particular employee from the database. That's why I am giving the return type as response entity to send an HTTP status. And then the method name delete employee, and I have to extract the path variable employee ID. That's why I have to give the annotation @path variable, and I have to store it inside long emp ID. Fine. And inside this I will use a try catch block. So what I will do inside the try block is I will return this dot employee service dot delete employee. So I have to define another function inside the service layer, which is delete employee function, and I have to send the employee ID inside that function to get that particular employee deleted from the database, a list in this case. So let us go to the service layer and create this method. Let us create the function in the service layer to delete an employee. So public void delete employee with the parameter long ID. Let's implement the unimplemented methods. So hover on this and add unimplemented methods. What I will do here is, if I find the particular employee, I will delete it. What I will do is, I will iterate through the list and I will store all the objects in that list except the employee whose ID matches with this ID. Fine. So what I will do is, I will take the list and store all the employees except the employee which has this ID. So I will use list.stream. So this dot list dot stream. If you don't know how streams work, you just have to read a little bit on the net and then you will get to know how stream work. So this dot list dot stream dot filter, we will filter out all the employees which doesn't have this particular ID. So filter, and inside it e dot get ID not equal to ID. Okay, so it will store all the employees whose ID is not matching with this particular ID, which has come from the front end, from the controller. and we will collect all those employees. So collect collectors dot to list. Let's save it. Let's go to the controller. And if the deletion is successful, we will return an HTTP response 200. That is okay. So return response entity HTTP status dot okay. Fine. And if there is any problem in deleting it from the server, then we will send an HTTP response for internal server error. So return new response entity HTTP status dot internal server error. Fine. So this is our delete mapping method. Let's check it. Let's restart the application. Let's check it in Postman. So as you can see, through the GET request, I can see 3 employee objects, Rijusri, Arun and Sam. So I want to delete this Sam with ID 3. What I will do is I will change the method to delete and I will give the ID here as 3 and I will click on send. As you can see, I am getting this HTTP status 200 OK. So Sam should be deleted with ID 3. Let's do a GET request to see whether it is still visible or not. As you can see, the Sam with ID 3 is not visible. That object is not visible. That means the delete request is successful. Well, we have successfully created our REST API implementing all the methods get, post, put and delete. There are other methods such as patch. I would give you as a homework to implement the patch method and put a comment in the comment section whether you are successful or not. In the next video, I will connect to the database and create a table and put the DAO, that is the data access object layer, in between the service layer and the database. So thanks for watching my video. If you have liked this video and learned something from it, please put a comment down below, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching my video. Have a nice day.